Courtney, thanks for coming on and recording with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jake.
So, Courtney, you're an agent with Carolina One. You've built a specialty around the market that we actually live in together in Summers Corner. We can get into like the bad reputation that Summers Corner, might have with some agents a little bit later, but hopefully people go easy on that, not judge us too much. But you also work with some relocating clients, and we're actually connected through our church in that community, Seacoast Summers Corner. But you're originally from Michigan, right?
I'm originally from Michigan, yeah.
What part?
So south of Ann Arbor, small
Okay.
town. Grew up in a very tight-knit community. Um, and my dad was originally stationed here in the Navy in the 90s, the old Navy base. And that's how I was introduced to Charleston after he was out. They decided to move back to Michigan while I was younger. And then my grandmother stayed here. So I would come and visit her all the time in the summers and just stayed in the old village part of Mount Pleasant.
Nice. I'm sure it looked very different back then than it does now, but we
Mhm.
can get into that later. But when you're helping a relocating client get their entire life settled into our backyard, because you do a lot of your work in Summers Corner, right where we live. What's something that you understand about that move, and how does that impact the way you work with those reload clients?
Yeah, so I am a mom of two, and to think about it in a client's shoes with family moving here, they have so many questions about the area. And as you know, we are limited to some things. So, as a mom and a person that's like very active in the community, I kind of help direct them into some areas, some real resources that the community has really created, connect them with other neighbors, just so they could get a feel of the area and just really start to make it into little bits of the process. So it's not something that is a huge mountain for them. They can just start to take little steps. And then as they take those steps, we take a moment to celebrate and enjoy that process rather than let's shuffle and bustle to get to you here. I want to make sure that they actually enjoy moving because moving's not fun. It's not great when you have your kids, family, everything. So trying to make it a little less stress-free and fun in the mix of it is something that I really try to help with them.
I love that you leaned into that right away. That understanding of, even if you're just moving right down the street, it's insanely stressful.
Yeah.
It's not something anybody wants to do. And we talk about this on the mortgage side. I have this conversation sometimes of we're kind of selling something that nobody wants. Nobody wants a mortgage. They want the house,
Right.
but nobody wants a mortgage. And it sounds like you have a really good understanding, and to keep that in the front of your brain of all of the stresses that go into this process, and then the emotions that brings out in people sometimes, and sometimes the way they react to some of those emotions. So I think it's really cool that you have an understanding of that and you keep that right in front.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And what I usually do as a process goes on is I ask my clients what I could do for them that week, whether it's looking at the kids if they were into sports, if they were looking at daycares around the area, just sending them a list of resources to help them kind of ground their feet a lot better than just, leaning on a Facebook post and there's everybody's feelings in that, like just really trying to help them through that process and be there for them.
Do you have a system for that? So, like on week one, I'm asking this question, and week two, I'm asking this question, or does it happen more organically?
It happens more organically as we go. So if it's a quick close or a longer close, that's really dependent on the timeline. But throughout the process, getting like closer, if it's closer to the school year, I know that a mom is going to be asking about school immediately. How are we going to get our child registered for school? So I know that's going to be at mom's top of their mind. So it really depends on each client before. And I sit down and do like what I do is like a questionnaire with my clients, like a buyer interview. So kind of like how they're at in this process, where they at when they're moving, is mom needing to transfer her job and or dad, or, it's a lot of moving parts. So I kind of gather it's about an hour and a half long of just diving deep into their whole life and seeing how I can help them really thin it out a little bit. So that way, when we start to have those conversations and stuff, it's that organic flow of, okay, I know that this week this is going to be starting to be something that's going to be on the high list of it.
That interview, that's really cool. Is that something that you do in person or is that virtual? How do
Yeah.
you do that with clients?
So I do it like this. I meet him online. It could be early 6 a.m. and it could be late 9 to 10, depending on time zones. With military families, dad or mom with work and stuff, bedtimes, as we know, is just crazy. So I try to meet my clients where they are. Sometimes it's very late, sometimes it's very early, or on the weekends where we just kind of carve out that time and just really focus in on how I can really help them through it.
Yeah, I want to stay on this because I find this really interesting. How are you scheduling it then? Is it through Calendly? Are you just like shooting a text? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I have a link to my website that people will just start to like log into. So it links to my calendar. They can see my times and what I'm available. So my work calendar is very like structured in that sense, and I only allow it on certain times. If it's like times that are later, I let them know like, hey, this day and next availability on that day, so that way they can kind of schedule it with me. But yeah, I just use the Calendly, and then I just send a reminder, so it sends reminders automatically for me to.
Yeah, I so I do the same thing. So I do a, virtual loan consultation with all of my clients and I've gone back and forth so many times on should I have hours that are, available on Saturday morning because I'm like, I need to do it. That's when the client's available. And then somebody books it at 9 a.m. on Saturday and I just get this, why did I do this? So I don't know. I find that really interesting that um we have these options and then it's like when am I going to be available? I don't know. Have you gone through that?
I'm not really personally, because of our schedule has been so hectic. With our youngest at a different school and a different schedule, it kind of just flows with our kind of chaotic life. And it's nice too, like if I can just do it super early in the day, so then that way I have the rest of the day I can do showings or listing appointments or those kinds of things, because I do a lot of like appointments with my sellers too throughout the week. So I tried the structural time of like only Mondays this is what you're gonna do, and only Tuesdays, and it just, for me personally, it just never works out that way. I can't. I I like my schedule to be a little chaotic, which is kind of not normal with people, but I like to it's not the same every day.
Well, it's working very well for you. We were actually, I'll tell this story. I think I've told you this before. I was driving home with my wife, Britt, shout out Britt. And she made, it was a comment along the lines of, does Courtney do like every listing in Summer's Corner? Like she recognized how much you're working just in our little space. And it was a huge compliment to you.
No, I appreciate that, Britt. I do outside of Summer's Corner too, but a lot of the business is in Summer's Corner for sure.
Well, that's the only place we see because that's where we
Yeah,
live. But
yeah,
yeah, so yeah, it is a huge compliment to you. But what I'm hearing is that you relate so well to the people in our community. You're talking about your hectic life, and you're very open to we can all relate to, trying to figure out bath time at
yeah.
7 p.m. and juggling all of the demands of real estate and all of these things. So when you're open about those things with clients, it just makes it so much easier for them to relate to you. And it sounds like you've nailed that.
Yeah, I'll tell people, hey, between 5 and 7, I'll respond as quick as I can, but that's bedtime, that's dinner time, that's everything, homework, whatever we need to do, get ready for the next day. it may be a hot second before I can respond to you, but I will respond to you by end of day. But just know it's kind of chaotic there, you know, or sometimes you got to go hide in the bathroom and answer that phone call and act like nothing's breaking in the background, but you know,
But a mom hears that and she goes, "Yeah, that's who I want to work with.
yeah,
That's my people." You
yeah,
know?
yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a big thing that I think a lot of people could probably relate with me, right? Is I'm working, I'm a mom. My husband has a chaotic schedule too. So when we both can link up, I get it with families. Like if mom and dad are, you know, on opposite schedules, I have a system where we are in a group community like chat. So any of my sellers or buyers are always in the chat. If one person calls me, I circle back up in the chat with that conversation. So that way nobody's left out and, you know, everybody's still involved, and it takes that release off the relationship too, because moving is a huge stressor on a relationship as well. So I try to help alleviate as much as I can.
Let's back up just a little bit. What year did you get licensed? I'm not sure I actually know this.
I got licensed in 21.
21. Take me back to that first year. Did you find a lot of success right away, or was it more of a slow build for you?
So in the first 6 months, it was like the end of the summer, fall, and that was when interest rates were starting to spike up a lot. I decided to try to do it part time. The girls were not in daycare; they were not in school. I was still a stay-at-home mom, and my husband was working a lot. Matt, you know, was working out of town a lot, so I would be home alone with the kids Monday through Friday. So I wasn't sure if jumping into it would be, you know, the best decision for our family at first. And so I started to get into it and it kind of just took off. And there was just a moment when we were just, me and Matt were sitting there at the island at like 10 o'clock at night and I was just wrapping up the day. And I was like, I really enjoy this a lot. This is something that I want to do in my career. And I'm going to jump in and we're just going to kind of figure it out as we go. And so we did. We figured it out as we went. We figured out daycare, like part-time daycare, and we got full-time. Bella went to school she got into Sand Hill, um, the pre-K program. And so it was just all the things were starting to fall into place. And then it just kind of really took off really after that. And I think like the first 6 months, like it was crazy how much it took off.
That's awesome. Was there a turning point in what you think you do differently as compared to some agents who may stay stuck in that like 5 to 10 transactions per year place? Is there something you feel like you've leaned into that's really accelerated your business?
The biggest thing I would say is I do not only like weekly checks with my clients, I kind of do a weekly check with myself and a monthly like recap. And then I'll do quarterly assessments, like where I'm like, okay, like where is my business? Like where is that kind of growing? What is really working? What is not? Because we're always trying new things that are to help our business or not to, you know, or it might work for somebody else and it might not work for somebody else. So I try to stay in my business and kind of, you know, just really look at things that are really working. And then if I want to try something, I'll try it and give myself like a deadline. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So that's what I've just been really doing. Now, is it perfect? Absolutely not. Maybe some weeks I forget I did it and do it, you know. But I do try to like hone in on at least 30 minutes a week of like what is going on, and where are my clients coming from? Are they coming from, you know, personal sphere referrals? Have I like reached out to those referrals? There's a huge group of folks that are just my little, I call them my little referral buddies. Like they always are constantly there cheering me on. And, you know, I want to make sure that I celebrate that because that's a huge thing. I don't pay for leads. I don't pay for, you know, all of those things. It's just word of mouth. So like so important to make sure that those clients feel truly celebrated. I'll write them letters, I'll do little pop bys. I'll try to make sure that I make specific time for those clients, especially.
This is really powerful. I want to dig into this a little bit more. This is something that I haven't heard a lot of agents say that they do. And it's something that I've tried to put into my business as an LO as well. So 30 minutes, you're sitting down trying every week. Is this something you're doing alone, or do you have somebody giving you kind of guidance on what you should be doing, what you should be trying, what you should stop doing in your business? What does that look like?
So I originally picked it up when I went to the Ninja with Carolina One. We did like a Ninja, was it Ninja?
Yeah, I know you guys are big on that book, Ninja Selling. The
Yeah, Ninja
Ninja,
selling, like the
yeah,
basics. And so like what I'll do, and I started to realize that a rhythm of mine is every Monday, like checking in with every client I'm working with, um, looking at who I spoke to over the week and the weekend. I'll do hand letters every day. And I try to just sprinkle a little bit of good throughout the week. So if I see somebody online, or I guess really it just comes down to who I am. If I know somebody had like a bad day or a birthday, I'm reaching out to them or writing the notes or just a text of encouragement throughout the week. I really try to hone in on. It's kind of what I got from the ninja course, is just trying to be a better human to other people. There's, you know, a lot of people are facing a lot of things.
yeah. It's amazing that we just try to be a good person and how much it just comes back to you from
Hmm.
doing that. And it's easy to get caught up in, I want to drive business, I want to drive business, and that's the way my brain is wired, you know. But when you're just like, yeah, just be a good person, how much of an impact, that can have on, and it just brings so much more enjoyment to what we
Yeah.
do too. Makes it so much more fun. So along that line too, so you're doing a monthly check-in as well. Is that different from the weekly check-in? Is
Yeah.
that
So
like a
my
deeper
month,
dive?
yeah, a monthly is I'm looking at my business for the next 3 months.
Oh,
So I'm trying to stay ahead of the next 3 months because of the quarters and stuff. So I'll sit down and I'll say, okay, like what is going on in my next 3 months? Kind of like trying to look at even my schedule too. Like we've got summer break, we've got, school breaks, all the breaks in the world they have in school. So I try to figure out where I will be needed more at home to kind of push more of things I need to do before. And then I try to look at, okay, in the next 90 days, what would my business look like? If I could stopped right now, what would my business look like? And so that's kind of where I try to like hone in a little bit more because it's a consistent cycle of business, right? Like we just need to consistently look. It will, if you stop working, the work will stop. So I try to hone in on, okay, what's my next 3 months looking like?
well, it's easy to see now why you're having, or why you're having some of the success that you're having, because you're so intentional about your business. I haven't heard that level of intentionality with a lot of the people that I've talked to. So that's really cool, and that's really inspiring. One of the questions that I do have, you've had some partners that you've worked with over the past few years, and maybe some support staffers and things like that. Are you working completely on your own now?
Yeah, I've been completely on my own. I did have like a team where we last year kind of helped through the process. It wasn't my jam because of the way that I like to work. I have a system, like I said, I have those check-ins. I like to be very intentional with my clients. So right now it's just me doing everything. I have a transaction coordinator, of course, but that's just who is really in my sphere of things right now.
What's the toughest part of working on your own like that as compared to having being a part of a team?
Yeah, so there's different ways to be on a team. The previous team I was on, we helped like work together on each transaction. This current team I'm on with Jeremy, we kind of like lean on each other. So if I'm busy, kid's sick, and I need help with something, and if he's available, he'll help out. And then vice versa, on those kinds of things. If we need help or if we're on vacation, we get a sign call. I always get sign calls when I'm gone on vacation. And so he'll help when he can in that sense. But I don't know. A lot of clients that I talk to, even when I'm gearing up to go on vacation and stuff, are people who are in the sphere where I'm like, okay, they're going to get ready to, move. I kind of let people know ahead of time, about a month out, where I might be not available. There's been a couple clients who have scheduled their times to come down after I come back to home to help them. So I kind of just have that relationship with my clients, that if they want to spend time with me, so it's more so it's intentional. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
if I'm not here, I'm not gonna be here for 4th of July, and a couple people were like, well, we're thinking about coming down, and I said, we'll definitely come down. I might not be here, or I'm not gonna be here till this date. And they let me know a couple days later, hey, we're just gonna come when you come back to town. So my business really, there's that kind of, how can I explain that? My clients respect the time that I'm not in like the state, but I can
Yeah.
still be there virtually too.
Yeah. Well, and it just relates back to what you talked about earlier with the kids and all that. You just have a realness with your clients and you have an authenticity that sounds like works really well for you. But then
Yeah.
people respect that too. And this actually, this is very timely for me. So I'm on vacation right now. And when I left, I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell anybody that, typically refers me, my referral partners, my clients. But then I get in a situation where I'm out to dinner and my phone rings and I'm like, well, of course it did. You didn't tell anybody, idiot.
Yeah.
Like what, so I don't know if you could give a piece of advice to an agent who's battling this right now is like, yeah, I need to go on vacation with my family and we're recording at the end of June. It's vacation season.
Hmm.
Um, what would you tell that agent? Is it okay to tell your clients? And you mentioned that referral community that you have that you're going on vacation. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I take it like I'm out like showing homes, or I'm busy with an appointment. So I'll tell anybody that I'm working with in the moment, like I'll go through my sphere, I'll start to remind them, because it will fall out of their head, everything's going on, right? So, hey, just a reminder, I'm going to be out next week, or hey, just letting you know, and just starting to like, fall into it's not a surprise. And there's always going to be things that come up on a vacation. It always does. So, I just ask my clients to just text me, let me know that I need to call them, or, if we need to schedule a time in the day to call and get on the phone or a Zoom or whatever we need to do, I can do. Just send me a text real quick, just a heads up, unless you want to hear the kids, fighting in the background about something crazy. So I try to tell my clients, just text me. It's kind of like when it's busy season in showings and appointments, like, hey, I can't talk right now. Let me call you in 10 or something like that. So I think just having that real honest conversation, they know that we're human, Um, so if you just have that open conversation, like like last week was the time when it wasn't scheduled. My mom passed away, and I still had to deal with writing an offer and showing issues. But the communication, I think, of just a text of, hey, let me get back to you really quick, or hey, I'm not going to be available for the next hour. Just having those conversations with your clients, and even agents too, because agents don't know what you are going through. I don't know on the other side what that agent's going through. They could probably be dealing with the same thing. Kids are home. It's summer break. They're fighting about something probably silly, like somebody got the blue popsicle and somebody wanted the green popsicle. So, you know, it's just like just having a little bit more, what's the right word? Compassion to everybody right now and a little bit of grace in this time. Everybody's dealing with a lot.
Yeah, you mentioned your mom passing away, and I'm so sorry to hear that. And then having to write offers while that's going on. Oh my goodness! Like I'm trying to just wrap my head around all of that. I can't even put myself in those shoes. But I was just thinking while you were talking through that, the client. I've been thinking a lot lately about the client that I want to work with. And if I were to tell somebody, "Hey, I'm on vacation, like I'll get back to you today, like this afternoon," and if they were gonna push back on that, that's somebody I don't want to work with anyway.
Right.
Like that's gonna be a miserable experience for everybody involved anyway, and that's okay. So it sounds like you've been really intentional
Yeah.
about what you communicate with people and how you communicate that, and that's really respectable. I'm sure you've gone through some of the seasons where, you're refining this. So it is a process, but it sounds like you've gone through that process and
Yeah.
and have designed these things intentionally and what works for you. Am I hearing
Yeah.
that correctly?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there was a time where I would just drop everything, right? I didn't want to miss the call. I didn't want to lose that opportunity with a client. But over the years, I've just kind of have that client that I want to work for. I am a mom. I have two really young kids, and so and I have a husband who has a very demanding job. So sometimes he's not in the house, and it's just all me all day. And so I need that client to understand and respect that time. And there have been plenty of times, even still to even this year, I've told clients that we are just not a good fit. Before we even started, even before we signed paperwork, because not only are they interviewing me, I'm interviewing them to see if this is going to be a good fit because it's a tough market. There's a lot of new construction competition, especially in Summers Corner. And if those clients aren't ready to have those hard talk conversations, then we might not be at the spot that we need to be together in, right? So, there's been plenty of times where I've told clients that, hey, we're probably not a good fit, but you should definitely reach out to, try to reach out to somebody else. Like I try to refer other agents to them that might be a good fit for them.
That's so respectable. And my next question here kind of fits right along with this. I've never done this before, but I actually want to get into a couple of the reviews that clients left you online. So
Okay.
I found it really interesting. One review
Okay.
mentioned that exactly what you've described already. You sent pictures every week to a family who was building while they were in another state. And I thought that system was so cool. And then in one review, the word, and actually in a few reviews, the word fought came up multiple times in a good way. Courtney fought for me. Courtney fought for me. And what I'm curious about is what does fighting for a client actually look like? Because I think a lot of people will throw that word around. And if they're meeting with a client, they would say, I'll fight for you. I'll fight for you. But to actually have a client say it is a totally different thing. So I thought that was really cool. And I'm curious from your perspective, what does it actually look like to fight for a client?
That's such a good question. Um, I would have to say I really intentionally, when we are on market for a listing side of it, I really try to collaborate with the agents. And before I do, I reach out to my clients. Like maybe it might be something like the carpets need to be like, refreshed or something like that. And that was the feedback. And I let this, clients know like, hey, this is what agent, left. Would you be okay if I would go back and be like, hey, could we put this in the offer? Could we negotiate this in and get something on paper and then negotiate it that way and kind of collaborate together? I've done a lot of that lately, especially with just new construction and competition. Like there's always one thing that a whole resale can't compare to new construction. It's brand new. So if we can kind of try to get in the same line with Lennar. That's what I really try to really focus on. And then with, repairs, having a good contractor or just somebody who, like an HVAC tech, who might just write a simple letter to the buyers, like, this isn't really something that we need to focus in on. Like, it's nothing that would be serious, right? Or if it was something very serious, like somebody had a question about the trusses. So we had them meet with Lennar and, really sit down and educate them. So not just saying, thanks for the feedback, let me know if your client's interested. I really try to dive deeper into like what exactly is holding them back. And then as a buyer side of it, it's more so of like we've got builders. Some builders, new construction builders are great, and some are, a little different from different areas of the country that get moved here too. And I really try to sit there and, talk to the inspector if we have a third party inspector, or really just start to ask questions about it. I remember one time there was a patch. It was drywall that was, drying, but there was some water marks in the what's it called? The screening.
Hmm.
And so I asked the builder, like, hey, could you like maybe take a look and make sure it's not the pipe or something? And me and the client and their son was standing right there the whole time. And, the builder was getting more upset about it and annoyed. And I just simply said, look, I understand it could just be the drywall tape. It could be wet, but there's a pipe there. I would really greatly appreciate if you just got something, or if we can get our inspector back out there to double check that there's no leak on that second floor, because that's going to be a lot of damage right after you close. It's going to be a mess. So I would just really appreciate if you could just do this. And so just having a respectful conversation and like a realistic conversation, like, hey, if this was you, you would really want this, to be looked at. Or, hey, if this was somebody that you truly loved, you would want your mom or your sister or your brother or whoever your family is to not be treated that way. And so just trying to bring it back to being a decent, just a human. Like, let's put the person back in the transaction. It's not about the transaction.
And that's exactly listening to that where I would go, yeah, I want Courtney representing me, and that's how you've built such a great reputation in our community. Whether it's, we're going to switch gears a little bit, whether it's right in Summerville or in our surrounding space of Charleston in our area, what's the one biggest mistake you see agents making in our market today?
There's a lot of noise online, and I think a lot of agents look at other agents. I mean, it is a very, very hard market. We have a ton of agents. We have a ton of great agents. And I think agents get so focused on what this agent might be doing versus what they could bring to the table. So they get lost in the mess and the noise of everything instead of just focusing on them. I do it sometimes where I get down in the dumps. I'm like, man, I'm not a great agent. Sometimes, I'll get in my head, but I think agents really start to focus in on that noise, and then they kind of they lose who they are, right?
Mm.
They lose how they can represent that client, because not every client is right for the right agent. There's so many people that have different personalities. So, and there's plenty of business in Charleston.
So well said. Yeah, and I think that's where people do lose that authenticity, because you connected it between, it feels like if I'm too real to myself, people are going to go to other agents. It's the same thing on the loan side. Like, if I don't stay true to myself, there's so many other LOs out there. Realtors are going to refer somebody else. Clients are going to go to a different LO. Was there like a turning point where you kind of went, you know what, like, I'm just going to be true to myself? Was there like a specific moment where you kind of went, forget all this other stuff, I'm just going to worry about me and the clients that I want to focus on?
I think it was probably year 2 in my business where it was really busy, and then it kind of slowed down, and that's just the way real estate is. It's highs and lows. Started to slow down, and I started to get lost in the aspect of it, and so I just kind of took a step back, and that's when I started to say, okay, that's when I started to get in those weekly check-ins and those monthly
Mm.
check-ins of myself of like, where am I? And giving myself a hard stop. So if something's not working, I'm going to give it to this deadline and then we're done. And then I'll move to something else. So then it's not all the things at once too. So I might try like one thing at one specific time, and then the next quarter I might do something a little different. So I really try to not really lose myself for weeks on it. I really try to focus in quickly,
Hmm.
because once you start to lose that focus, you'll lose it completely quickly.
I want to wrap us up on this. You mentioned a specific moment where you were sitting at your kitchen table at 10 o'clock at night and you went, I'm going all in on this. You had a little bit of success, but it was, this moment where you said to your husband, Matt, shout out Matt, he's the man, love Matt, where you went, I'm going all in. What is the one thing you would tell that version of Courtney who didn't really know that all of this success was coming? But being where you are now, what would you tell that Courtney in that specific moment?
I would say lock in, like focus, put your goals in there, and have faith, and just lock in. Just keep your head down and focus and keep praying, because some days are extra prayers and some days are, you know, just just focus, and it will grow. It really does.
I love that. Courtney, you've got incredible advice. If anybody who has been listening wants to reach out just to ask follow up questions about something that you mentioned today, connect further, anything like that, how can they reach out and get in touch with you?
They can find me on obviously social media, but I'm a open book. Like I said, there's a ton in the business. They can reach out, ask anything. If I've tried a certain program or, stuff like that, I'm more than open to having conversations, like meet up with coffee. That's totally cool. But yeah, they can reach me on social media. They can call me. They can text. Text is probably better than call. I am a little old school. I like to talk on the phone sometimes, but they can text me and we can meet up.
Love it. I'll link everything in the description here. Appreciate your time coming on and sharing these insights.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and have a good vacation.
Thank you.
All right, bye.